I'm going to do a real quick kind of 5-minute intro to sort of our background, and we're going to play a little kind of a game, a little exercise. So I came to Kenya about 14 years ago, really excited about community currencies. And when I got here, after a few years in volunteer work, I found that there were a lot of indigenous practices that were very similar to what would be called mutual credits in other parts of the world. And this in particular, called Mwedia, which is the Kikuyu social heritage. In the Bantu language, there's also Mwedia. We live, our headquarters is on the coast of Kenya, and the Kenya was called Mwedia. Basically, this was a rotational labor association in academia. You might hear the term ROLA, R-O-L-A, Rotational Labor Association. And there were many kinds of these. Basically, the community would get together and create commitments towards mutual aid in different types. So like this Mzee here, this old man is taking care of kids on rotation, doing education. There would be rotational cooking going on, as well as infrastructure developments, like building a granary is what's going on there. And generally these would be celebrations, kind of work parties. And just to simplify it down, I come from a background in physics, and then I went into econophysics and eventually economics, so I think a lot in balance of trade. And so we've got 3 families here that are giving a commitment to each other of 2 days worth of goods or services. And what they're going to do is they create a liability. They're all due to give those 2 days of services, and they also give each other this asset that they can draw on the other's resources. So think about it as a pool of commitments and a common trust. So anyone within the community can draw on that common trust to come and help them with various things. They would call a mweria, for instance. And so this first family here is calling on the other families to help them build a granary, let's say before the rains. Their assets in this cycle have dropped down to 0. They still have a liability. They haven't actually helped the others yet. So they got what would be considered now something like a production loan, right? They got some resources in advance. And they have balance of trade -2, so their assets minus liabilities. In other words, they're in debt to the others who are in credit now. And that cycle would rotate around until everyone's got their granaries, and they would be building at the same time all kinds of assets. So they've got the asset of the granary, but they've also got their social capital, their trust, their skills, whole families being involved. So this was a really beautiful tradition, and it's still there, but we'll go into kind of what happened to it. This is sort of a little bit more of a in-depth version where you have a community that's issuing credit that's audited based on committed services. So not everyone's part of these networks. They would choose exactly, this group of people. Those would go into these cycles, but could also be used in terms of community support, and even out to regional markets. There could be reciprocity among neighboring villages, out into clans. And there would generally be an expiration of those. They don't last forever. Right? So the idea being that there's always some form of settlement in these. And this is a map of roads between villages, kind of pre-colonial. And just to think about, this is kind of the process we've been in. We're not anthropologists, and we're really inviting anthropologists to come and help us learn about this stuff with the communities. Because a lot of the knowledge is, we're right on the cusp of losing a lot. Like there's a lot of people that are, as kids, they will remember being in Mwedia. They can remember their songs and dances to these. And their parents would have been doing these traditions not, only 2 generations ago. So in general, the framework that we sort of see going on here is about that there's a sort of the larger basket there is a bunch of indigenous principles and practices that have been around for a very long time. And inside that, there's a set of agreements around these practices and instruments in terms of how they would actually record or track debts in the system. So for instance, if you didn't show up, like you got help from everyone else, but you didn't show up, how was that actually being tracked within the community? So there were instruments, recording instruments, essentially ledgers, within the community of dealing with debt and making sure there was reciprocity in cycles. So the agreements is what we kind of think of as we've been using So a commons that's holding different types of instruments and defining the rules and responsibilities around those instruments. And we like to go into a lot of the work of Olstrom here, playing around with acronyms here for remembering some of the principles that she's pulled from these. We also draw a lot of inspiration from Mark Burge's work, which is more on the computer science side, and then just kind of tracking how cycles of promises build trust. And his work actually started in computer engineering, and it was how do circuits actually form, like within your laptop, how do you actually trust that you're going to get a regular output from these fairly autonomous units that are going on in your devices. So I recommend his work a lot. He's got a lot of really interesting stuff. But generally the idea being that the ability for people to issue a promise, to make a commitment, for that to be accepted by the community and for it to be fulfilled, that was what was building social capital. Yeah. This is sort of looking back at how currency now was established in Kenya from the colonial perspective. There's a huge history to this. I'm sure a lot of you might know it better than I, but the idea of an elite controlling a fiat coming in with forcibly open markets, forced taxation, so hut taxes, other types of kind of currency suppression or suppressing a lot of these indigenous practices, export focus and the dispossession of land, versus economic commons is about synergistic credit, so mutual credit, mutual agreement, harmonious cyclical flow, accountable systems, rights and obligations and agreements around those systems, and land regeneration and democratic stewardship. So I think it's important because we still live in the left side. We fully live in a colonized monetary system that was designed to essentially extract and give power to an elite. This is a little kind of timeline history of thinking about these instruments. So rotational labor associations, you had a credit issuer as the community was endogenous from the community. Your medium of exchange itself would be the time and labor of that community. Okay. And you would have a unit of account being endogenous as well, right? That would be their actual time. And then we've kind of skipped all the way to fully exogenous systems. And we're trying to sort of find different middle paths to combine these back together. So, very quickly here, I think, next slide. Okay, well, so what we're going to do is we do a lot of practices in communities. One of the goals here is, maybe the next one after that, yeah. So, most communities have lost these practices, right? They're not common anymore. You will see them replaced with shilling merry-go-rounds and tabletop etiquette, right? So instead of offering their promises and labor to each other, what they have to offer is 50 cents, right? And so they'll pool that 50 cents, and some larger groups will pool, $10, and that's the pool that is moving around the community, rather than being able to create their own sense of credit. So what we're going to do here is there's another one of these rotating around, and everybody just gets 5 of these. We'll try to be very quick about this. And so imagine more than 5
Yeah, I need 5. Can I? 2,
So what you're going to imagine is
3, 4, 5.
we do it in community groups.
2, 3, 4, 5. Okay,
Everybody gets
got
together
it.
and they say, what are the resources they have to offer, right? Whether it's this woman here is selling tomatoes, the other woman is doing hair salon, the other person is doing this, and we basically build a connected asset mapping of that community. We say, what are all the assets of that community? Social capital, all the things you have to offer. And then we play a game similar to this where everyone is basically saying one of these is worth, in this group, let's say 1 hour worth of your own services. Okay? So this represents your 1 hour worth of your own services. And those could be anything. If you can't think of anything you have to offer, be creative. Okay? I'm sure there's something. And your goal right now is to spend and spend as much as you can. So you're gonna, this is 1 hour worth of your services, and you're gonna use it to purchase, we'll say exchange, for the services of others. So if I want this gentleman's work, I would say, okay, what do you do? And I would give him a bean for that, and I would be consuming his hour. Okay, so we're just gonna very quickly jump up and stand up and try to spend your 5 beans.
I do photography. What do you do? I do photography. What do you do?
What do I do? I do graphic art.
So are we exchanging it?
Yes.
Okay. So you can have 1 hour of my photography and I have 1 hour of your graphic design. What if? And then if there's somebody who you don't want to exchange with, just like maybe buy it from. So if I'm selling photography, I'll do like family portrait.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
What is the 2 pictures? 2 big portraits?
Well, I would spend an hour taking as many pictures with you in different places, and then you can pick which ones. 1 bean.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
I don't know who else would allow me to record them, so I'm going to record Rebecca because I think she would be okay with me recording her.
Maybe 2. Can I do 2?
I can use 1.
I appreciate that. We've got an environmental justice graphic design project.
Okay.
That would be really exciting.
So can you describe what you just did?
So we are exchanging service.
No, I don't mean that. I'm saying with this person in particular. I got what was the activity that we're doing.
She's offering editing and grant writing services and support. I'm just saying for hypothetical purposes, I'm offering graphic artist support. So
Right.
we did an exchange. She
So
took
how much-
2 of my credits, I took 1 of hers. So I now
So
have
one of her
4.
hours for the grant writing,
Yes.
and then you did.
Yeah, so I now have 1 hour of
Grant writing,
I have 1 hour of grant writing.
and you have 1 hour of photography from me,
Photography.
and you
So
still
I
have 2.
hours
You still have 2 of your own
Yes.
hours. Okay. Okay, cool. But I could probably sell your grant also. So I'm gonna go and see if there's somebody who wants to. Do you need graphic design? Okay, I'm giving you 1 graphic design, and then also I do photography for an hour. Would you like an hour session of photography? Okay, there you go. Oh, okay, we're ending. Okay.
If you can hear me, clap twice. If you can hear me, clap 3 times.
Okay, raise your hand if you have a lot of beans. How many you got? Count them.
4. I have 4 beans.
You have the same amount. Who's got a lot of beans? More than 5? Anybody? How many got? 6. Okay, anybody more than 6? How many? 7. Okay, so what you're holding there are the promises of other people, okay? So usually when we play this game, someone will end up with like 30 or something like this, and they'll say, oh, well, I'm rich. And they say, well, actually, you've given to the community, and you're holding the debts of other people, right? We need to come to balance. And so we do a lot of work around what's the process now of finding balance. We talk about finance as FINE, which is settlement. How do we reach balance again as a community? And we do cycles of these. And so like every round of this, there'll be a big celebration amongst the different groups. This is what it looks like. We have a data set of about 1 million transactions right now where they are using feature phones to track their trade amongst each other, asking you. So each one of these colors is a different community, and they're practicing these with each other, and they're also able to trade them between each other. We've been doing this since 2010. We've got about 60,000 people across Kenya that have used the system, and we started to spread to other countries.
Can you tell us why it's clustered?
Each cluster there is a group. So like this would have been a group of farmers that created it. They would be doing these practices like Mweria inside the group, but they're also extending the credit out to other people. So this person is, working on the field of someone in this group, and they end up using it. So it becomes like a currency. right? And I mean, the term community currency is something that comes out of this a lot, but we tend to not talk about currency. We say, no, we use the term voucher usually as a legal term. We say this is like a credit obligation, like airtime credit. It's a liability of the issuing group, right? And it can be an asset of whoever's holding it. So it's a bearer instrument in this case. And so those are all different groups. And so the interface to this is a simple USSD system, so you don't need internet to it. We've made it look exactly like M-Pesa, right? So everyone already knows how to use it in the country. It's super simple. So this is setting up your account. You can choose many different languages. To send a voucher to someone, you could choose different vouchers. You could have many, so you could have 5 from the different communities around you. You can send to someone with their phone number, and if you're a granny, you hand this to your kid and they do it for you. You have a little password, and then both parties get an SMS. So yeah, this is what our team looks like. A lot of them are actually here. Another one of our directors, Jeremy's in the back. And so yeah, we've been doing this for a while, and it's starting to really catch on, especially in Kenya. And it's been wonderful, and we usually have a few researchers every year, usually from data sciences and economics. We've never had anyone from anthropology or studying cultural activities like this, so that's something we'd really like to have more and more of. And yeah, I mean, I think about the technology bits of this as saying, well, okay, what's nice about having a distributed ledger is that everyone can see what's going on in the system, so there's some transparency to it. There's accountability in the system, you don't need a middleman for it, and they're interoperable with each other as well. And so we like to imagine we're taking some bits of modern technology and saying, what would our ancestors have done with this? Using the practices that they would have used in the past. So thank you guys very much.
What would our ancestors have done with this technology?